here I'm going to select something that's quite, it's getting to be a scatter of things here, but these are mainly the Briar pipes and mainly Peterson, but somebody told me that apparently it's now, I think this is a lunar year, rather that it's now the year of the dragon for the Chinese, and of course I realise that the magnificent and ancient Eastern dragons, the Chinese dragons, are in a very different tradition in terms of what they mean than the Western ones. I think the Eastern ones bring good fortune, but are also ancient and wise like the Western ones. Anyway, I just thought, okay, well, that's put me in the mind of dragons. I mean, we're having a bit of a fun with talking the last 2 times you come, so I thought, wouldn't it be lovely just to go back to that first moment? Certainly it was the first moment in my childhood of encounter with the dragon, which was the encounter with Smaug, Bilbo's first sight of Smaug. It's one of the best pieces of Tolkien's writing. So I thought, well, we must have a dragon pipe. And all the nice thing about these meerschaum pipes, it's a bit dusty, is that they come in their own little cases, little leather cases. They're usually black like that. But this one, I'm pleased to say, is sort of dragon red, and it's almost like... Now, I bought this in Oxford in a shop that may well, in its earlier days, have been patronised by both Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. Anyway, let me open this up and you'll see. Meerschaum, of course, is this wonderful material. Meerschaum means foam of the sea. Look at that. It's not a full dragon, of course, but it is very much a dragon's claw. And I think of it as my dragon pipe. So I thought, why don't we fire this one up with some Kendall Black Cherry, an English mix, though of course the tobacco is grown in America, and have a little settle and enjoy that wonderful bit of The Hobbit. Now, this isn't the original tin from which the Kendall Black Cherry comes, because they cover it with horrible pictures of people's interiors to try and put you off. But I put it in a nice tin, which is a railway poster of the Norfolk Broads. So lovely. It's quite moist still. This is quite new. Lovely, dark, mainly Cavendish, but with this gentle aromatic of cherry. Anyway, I thought we'd have a bit of Bilbo. I went to find my big, beautifully illustrated Hobbit, and I just can't find it anywhere. I have 3 Hobbits, as it were. I've got the old green-backed one that my father had, that had a picture of a sort of black dragon Smaug on the spine, which I loved. And I can't find either of those, and actually I couldn't find them before. So I bought, sort of off the web, a kind of emergency Hobbit, which is just a nice paperback, and it's got the vital passage. But I was thinking, oh, I wish we could see Tolkien's own illustrations. And then I remembered, and fortunately I could find it. I think this would go with the dragon thing quite nice, because this is a Lagavulin, so it's quite a smoky malt. It's a peaty, smoky malt. I've been to the distillery and seen the warm glow of the peat and the smoke rising up through the malt. Anyway, that's a nice biography of Tolkien. Almost all pictures of Tolkien show him smoking a pipe, which is rather good. Anyway, in Oxford a while back, they had an absolutely magnificent exhibition called Tolkien, Maker of Middle-earth, with all kinds of things. Not very good light to this. We really need Smaug himself. Much better. And lots of, as it were, personal things and memorabilia about Tolkien. But I bought the big catalogue, and loads of Tolkien's own drawings. And here, Smaug the Magnificent, as Tolkien himself drew and imagined him. A little Bilbo down there making his obeisance. Wonderful expression. on the dragon's face, and the great, as you'll hear in a minute, the great jars full of treasures. And the bat's up there. And that is just the perfect image to me of the dragon on his hoard. Quite a lot of the details about Smaug, and indeed the detail about stealing the cup, are gentle allusions, tips of the cap, as it were, from Tolkien to the Beowulf poet. Tolkien was a great expert on the Anglo-Saxon poem Beowulf, and Beowulf at the end, having earlier in the story slain Grendel and Grendel's mother, faces a dragon and dies in facing him. But there's an incident where somebody steals a cup. Perhaps this will work better. I haven't smoked this one for a while. One of the nice things about that picture, I don't know if you noticed when I showed it, is that Smaug has two little trails of smoke coming out of his nostrils. Tolkien had a fascination with dragons since childhood, and I sometimes wonder whether his own pleasure in pipe smoking didn't have a slightly dragonish element to it, when he too could breathe smoke from his mouth, if not fire. Anyway, who I seem to see coming right ahead down there, he thought. It was. Who I seem to see coming right. Who I seem to see coming out of his nostrils. Tolkien had a fascination with dragons since childhood, and I sometimes wonder whether his own pleasure in pipe smoking didn't have a slightly dragonish element to it, when he too could breathe smoke from his mouth, if not fire. Anyway, it's the glorious chapter Inside Information, when at last they found a little door into the mountain. And this is Bilbo's moment. And it takes real courage. There's a wonderful description in this of the ordinary little person faced with genuine fear and terror, overcoming it and moving on. And I think that's actually Tolkien, by Tolkien drawing on his experience of the Great War and the horrible and impossible things that ordinary Englishmen were asked to do on the Western Front. So, here we go. Bilbo's got to go down and prove they called him more of a grocer than a burglar, and he's going to show he's not just a grocer, he really is a hero as well. So he goes down into the tunnel. After a while, Balin bade Bilbo good luck and stopped, where he could still see the faint outline of the door, and by a trick of the echoes of the tunnel hear the rustle of the whispering voices of the others just outside. Then the hobbit slipped on his ring, and warned by the echoes to take more than hobbits care to make no sound, he crept noiselessly down, 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 into the dark. He was trembling with fear, but his little face was set and grim. Already he was a very different hobbit from the one who had run out without a pocket handkerchief from Bag End long ago. He had not had a pocket handkerchief for ages. He loosened his dagger in its sheath, tightened his belt, and went on. "Now you're in for it at last, Bilbo Baggins," he said to himself. "You went and put your foot right into it that night at the party, and now you have to pull it out and pay for it. Dear me, what a fool I was and am," said the least tookish part of him. "I have absolutely no use for dragon-guarded treasures. The whole lot could stay here forever if only I could wake up and find this beastly tunnel was my own front hall at home." He did not wake up, of course, but went still on, till all sign of the door behind him had faded away. He was altogether alone. Soon he thought it was beginning to feel warm. "Is that a kind of glow I seem to see coming right ahead down there?" he thought. It was. As he went forward, it grew and grew, till there was no doubt about it. It was a red light, steadily getting redder and redder. Also, it was now undoubtedly hot in the tunnel. Wisps of vapour floated up and past him, and he began to sweat. A sound, too, began to throb in his ears, a sort of bubbling like the noise of a large pot galloping on the fire, mixed with a rumble as of a gigantic tomcat purring. This grew to the unmistakable gurgling noise of some vast animal snoring in its sleep down there in the red glow in front of him. It was at this point that Bilbo stopped. Going on from there was the bravest thing he ever did. The tremendous things that happened afterwards were as nothing compared to it. He fought the real battle in the tunnel alone before he ever saw the vast danger that lay in wait. I bet there's many a person and many a soldier that could say that. He fought the real battle alone. At any rate, after a short halt, go on he did, and you can picture him coming to the end of the tunnel, an opening of much the same size and shape as the door above. Through it peeps the hobbit's little head. Before him lies the great bottommost cellar or dungeon hall of the ancient dwarves right at the mountain's root. It is almost dark, so that its vastness can only be dimly guessed, but rising from the near side of the rocky floor, there is a great glow, the glow of Smaug. There he lay, a vast, red golden dragon, fast asleep. A thrumming came from his jaws and nostrils, and wisps of smoke, but his fires were low in slumber. Beneath him, under all his limbs and his huge coiled tail, and about him on all the sides, stretching away across the unseen floors, lay countless piles of precious things, gold, wrought and unwrought, gems and jewels, and silver red-stained in the ruddy light. Smaug lay with wings folded like an immeasurable bat, turned partly on one side so that the hobbit could see his underparts and his long, pale belly crusted with gems and fragments of gold from his long lying on his costly bed. Behind him were the walls, where the walls were nearest, could dimly be seen coats of mail, helms and axes, swords and spears hanging, and there in rows stood great jars and vessels filled with a wealth that could not be guessed. To say that Bilbo's breath was taken away is no description at all. There are no words left to express his staggerment, since men changed the language that they learnt of the elves in the days when all the world was wonderful. Bilbo had heard tell and sing of dragon hoards before, but the splendour, the lust, the glory of such treasure had never yet come home to him. His heart was filled and pierced with enchantment and with the desire of dwarves, and he gazed motionless, almost forgetting the frightful guardian at the gold beyond price and count. I think that's absolutely magnificent piece of writing. The way he uses all the senses, it's getting darker, and then he feels the warmth, and he smells something, and he goes down and sees the glow, and then the great glow, the glow of Smaug, and then the beautiful description of the dragon and of the gold. Very much. Let's just look again for a moment, if I put it down in some accessible place, at that fabulous picture. You can see, as I said, the little wisps of smoke coming out of Smaug. And I loved the little bit where he wishes for a moment that he was back and the long tunnel would only be to his own dining hall. It's like he often wishes he was by the fire and the kettle being about to boil. And of course, we're in a nice, cosy, safe place, and the only glow and smoke is the glow of the embers in my pipe and the smoke of this very nice candle black cherry. But that's partly why we need these stories. We need at least in imagination to be taken to an edge, to see danger, to see everything that's that's, as it were, embodied in the idea of a dragon. And I think that bit where he's straightened his belt and loosened his dagger stood me in good stead as I was growing up. I read that as a very young boy, and then my father read it to me first, and then I read it for myself. And the idea that you might have a pause and what's ahead, even if it was just an exam, might be difficult. But you would jolly well loosen your dagger, or your pen at least, and tighten your belt and go on. And I feel that the same way in pauses in my writing. There are things you have to face and outface. And I think it's laid deep down in a child's soul, if they read great imaginative works like this, that there are dragons, but there are dragons